Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Cthulhu Dark Rules by Graham Walmsley. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to languages for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am normally your keeper, Keeper Michael, but we are again back with our Cthulhu Dark edition of the Old Ways podcast. And at this point, I'm going to step out of the storyteller's chair and hand it to our muse for the evening.
Yes. Hi, I'm Rina, and I normally play Lady E on the Horror on the Orient Express, but tonight I am running the show. We are playing Cthulhu Dark, my scenario Die Not Ingloriously. This is our second episode. Normally I would be your keeper, but because we are outside the walls of Troy, I will be your muse. We have a wonderful cast assembled tonight to continue their horrific adventures from last episode. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. To my right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Jeffries. I am playing Zoe, a priestess of Poseidon, who is currently standing in the middle of a tent looking at an open blood eagle where the lungs are still pumping. So she's a little stressed out. I'm a little stressed out. And based on her current insanity score of 4, I'm guessing she might be the first one out the door.
Oh, well, you never know. You never know. Someone else could beat you to it.
Yeah.
To Bridget's right.
This is Lonnie. I am playing Eulalia, a serving woman in King Agamemnon's household. And true to form, I didn't see anything.
Not yet, but you did just split the party, so you're going to have a much harder time avoiding seeing things.
Well, no, that's how I didn't see the thing anyways. I didn't be there.
Yeah, well, who knows what you're going to find next at the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Leon, a 19-year-old soldier, the stronger, more virile soldier in the party.
Yes, definitely, for sure. And to my left.
Yes. I am Mike. I'm playing Damon, the older, more experienced, the one who's lived by the words of Aristotle. We are what we do repeatedly. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Breathing lungs, blood all over the floor, and a roaring fire. What else would there be in ancient Greece?
What else would there be indeed? Well, we'll find out tonight, won't we? All right, so brief recap. Previously on Die Not Ingloriously, the 4 of you were summoned to the Temple of Poseidon to meet with the High Priest Hilarion, where he talked to you about the nightmares that you have all been having, the entire camp has been experiencing, and the disappearances, including that of Eulalia's son. He sent you off to speak to Iola, a former housemaid who had lost her husband. He had disappeared. Things went a little bit complicated and screamy, let's say, as Iola went into fits of hysterics. Damon found a brass dagger, or a bronze dagger, and had some snaky experiences. And there was a bit of blood, some self-mutilation, just all the normal things you would find in a camp at night, before deciding to split the party. So Leon and Eulalia went off to find the friends of Eulalia's son Callias, and Damon and Zoe went on to the tent of Quartermaster Makarios, who had sent off Iola's husband to a temple. Which god or goddess is still unknown. And Damon and Zoe found a very bloody, horrific sight as they entered into the tent. And we ended the episode with both of them looking on in horror at the tortured, brutalized figure of some man who appears to still be alive. So why don't we start with Eulalia and Leon as they're making their way over to speak to Callias's friends. You make your way back to the main part of camp. It's pretty easy to find Callias's friends. He was training with several other people who are about the same age, 16, 17, as they're preparing to go to war. And you know that they would be training. Usually they like to spend their evenings practicing their weapon work or polishing their shields, doing things to get ready for the next day in preparation to be soldiers, just outside the reaches of the main part of their unit, the unit they'll be assigned to once they turn 18. So you go back into this main part of the camp, you make your way to the unit where they'll be assigned. It's maybe a bit of a relief at this point as you move back into the space where there's noise and there's people, there's smell and fire and all of these other things that are normal to you. Perhaps that's reassuring, very, very comforting as you leave the sort of dead, empty section of the camp. There are people sitting around drinking out of wine goblets. You see off in the distance a plague cart that has stopped outside the temple of Asclepius, who is the god of medicine, and you see several priests wearing these long black robes and some kind of covering over their faces, carrying bodies out of the temple and laying them onto the carts. And you can quickly turn away from that, averting your eyes as you make your way towards the training grounds where you are likely to find some of Callias's friends. Do you speak to each other along the way? Do you go in silence?
I don't see any reason why we need to talk to each other.
Yeah, not really.
Perfect. So you make your way in stoic silence to the training grounds. The training grounds are ringed by tents. These are to protect the younger soldiers in training from any incursions by Trojan warring parties. Some have made their way to the camps before. And there's older soldiers, the more grizzled veterans who are sitting outside, getting their weapons ready or drinking and watching the youths who are training in this field. They're all wearing very, very short tunics to make it easier for them to perform athletically, these young teenagers. There's a small group of them who are practicing spear throwing. And you see one of them, a young man with very close-cropped brown hair, sort of fall over as he lunges a little bit too far, and all of his colleagues laugh at him. And then there is another group that's running. There's running around in a circle around this track, almost like they're training for the Olympics. And this group is running completely in the nude, as you do when you're running. And so they're just shining in the torchlight, the sweat from their bodies as they're running and running and running. And it's just amazing how much energy they have at the end of a long day. The whole miasma of the camp seems to have left them alone in the exuberance of their youth. And off to the side, you see there is a small group, about six young soldiers in training who are preparing their armor. It looks like they're having to take apart like breastplates and put them back together, these leather interwoven breastplates, and they're polishing spearheads and doing these other tasks to get ready for the next day. And Eulalia, you recognize in this particular group, the one off to the side, you recognize a couple of your son's friends over there. You see Elena, a young woman with short, curly blonde hair. She's holding on to a shield and she's putting a lot of elbow grease into it as she's polishing it there. You know, she was fairly close to Callias. And you also see Deimos, a young man sitting next to her. They're chatting about something, and he appears to be working on removing some grime off of a short sword.
I will look over at Leon, and I'm trying to form a plan to get him to not be there when I question them.
Good luck.
I will probably look pointedly at Elena and say, this was one of my son's dearest friends, and I would keep confident in anything that she says to me about such things. Could I have a moment?
Isn't the information that you seek to gain important to all in our group?
I will share everything with you.
So you will not be keeping her confidence?
I will keep my son's confidence.
Unless it has to do with information that is pertinent to our investigation, and then you will not.
Of course.
So then there's no problem if I am there.
There are things that she may say that are not related to the subject.
Ah, yes. Women's talk.
Yes, exactly.
I can see when this is not my place. I'll busy myself nearby in case I am needed.
Thank you.
Perhaps a listening distance. I don't say that, but that's what I think to myself. Like an earshot's away, the safe distance.
Okay, so Leon, stands aside and does his best to look like he's not listening, as Eulalia goes up to this group of young soldiers in training, and Deimos is the first to notice you. This young man, he's got a scar across one side of his face from a training accident where he slipped and fell on his own sword, and so. He looks up at you and he recognizes you. You stitched him up when when Kalias brought him home, and his face lights up. And Mistress Eulalia, what brings you out here? Have you found him?
No, Deimos. I have not yet, and that's why I came. Perhaps you can help.
He looks around at the rest of the group, and everyone just kind of goes quiet and says, "Well, we were hoping you would know. Was he at the temple?"
Which temple?
That's the problem. We don't actually know. And another young woman with dark hair and bright blue eyes speaks up from the other side, and you recognize her as Irene, and she says, "Oh, he started going to temple with some of the older soldiers from the unit. They asked him to come along for something. They needed someone to carry a shield or something. You know, we do that kind of stuff for the older soldiers sometimes. And so he went with them, and they were on some kind of mission, some kind of annoying priest that they had to go shut up or something. And when he came back, he was just very calm. It's kind of hard to explain, but you know how really excited he was about getting into fight things?
Yes.
He kind of slacked off on training for a couple days. Like, he'd be there, but he just... and she looks over at Deimos, and he goes, yeah, he was kind of out of it. Like, he'd go in for a drill, and we'd be all lined up with our shields in formation, and then we'd start marching, and he'd be a few steps behind us, kind of staring off into the distance a bit. It was very strange. We asked him where he went because, you know, what could do this to a good, healthy young Greek, and he just said we weren't ready to know yet, but that he'd found the one true God. Of course, we didn't go repeating that to anyone because that's lunacy. It was very weird, and then 2 days ago, he just didn't show up at all.
He never said anything about this to me when he was home. Did any of you go with him to the temple?
No, it was only 2 days before he went missing, you know, and we kind of pestered him a little bit, and Irene snickers a little bit. I thought it was a boy, to be completely honest, because he just kind of had this look in his eyes, and usually that means, you know, love. I think Aphrodite got her hooks into him personally. I thought he ran off with some boy. I still think he did, to be honest. Temple, indeed. As if some god could get that into a good, healthy, red-blooded young Greek.
I want to look at them really closely when I ask them if any of them had been to the temple with them, and see if any of them appear to be lying to me.
Okay, give me a roll.
That's a 2.
Okay, so as far as you can tell, they're just as confused as you are. Although Irene seems very convinced that the temple and God really meant Aphrodite, and that he'd just run off with some boy.
Did he say anyone in particular?
No, but okay. She just kind of looks around, and the others kind of go really quiet, and they look down at their work as if they're trying really hard not to pay attention. But she looks like she's not sure if she should be saying anything.
I will pointedly pull her off to the side.
Okay.
Hopefully out of earshot of the others.
Leon, if you want to give me a roll to see if you're hearing any of this, by the way, you can do that.
I certainly would.
Eulalia, give me a roll to see if you can persuade her to give you what you want.
I hear nothing over the clanging of my sword on these children's shields.
That's a 4.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So yeah, Leon, you got pulled into practicing some combat with these soldiers in training because they're all excited to see someone who was like them just a year ago. So you're sparring with them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Eulalia with a 4, you pull Irene aside, and she looks around like she's making sure no one's listening. And she says, "Well, that soldier, the one who asked him to come and take his shield, he's a little bit older, and I don't think it's really appropriate for a relationship. I think it was him because he used to talk about him sometimes. Like he really looked up to this guy, and I haven't seen him around either."
Do you know his name?
Cadmos. He's one of the swordsmen, which to you would mean he's a little bit older, not a spearman like Leon, so he must be a few years older than Callias. But he's really good looking, okay, I admit that. But he's got these scars and everything. It's really cool, but he only ever seemed interested in Callias, and he would train with him, and they trained together a lot, one-on-one, and then came and had Callias carry his shield for him, and I haven't seen him since either. So, like I said, maybe they're just off, having a romantic liaison on the beach or something.
I find it hard to believe that a soldier could just go missing for a dalliance and no one remark on it. What unit was he with?
He's with our unit. It's the unit that they've been training for, that Callias has been training for, and it's the same unit that that Leandros was attached to as well. She looks around nervously. He gave me this, and she reaches into, there's a little pouch attached to the side of her very short tunic, and she reaches in and she pulls out a leather strap. It looks like a strap that you had attached to a shield, and she hands it to you.
Is it broken?
It's brand new. It looks like it's never been attached. He said that if I put it on my shield, it would protect me. Because, I turn 18 next month, and so in a few days I'm going to be in the front, and so he gave me this. He said they gave it to him at the temple, that it would protect him, but he wanted me to have it because it was my time.
Have you had nightmare?
Yeah, every night. Who hasn't?
I want to take the strap.
Mm-hmm.
I want to examine it.
Okay.
For any markings or symbols.
You take the leather strap, and on one side, the side facing outward, it's just brand new pliant leather, and you turn it over, and on the inside of the strap, the part that would be against the wrist, there's a symbol. And this symbol, it's circular, and inside the circle is what looks like a pair of bat's wings, large and with sharp claws at the end. But there's a mass of serpents crawling up and around and down these bats' wings. And as you're looking at it, it's like they're moving. you touch it, you almost feel the scales of the snakes as you look at it. And I'd like that insanity roll, please, before you drop it.
Yeah,
So much for not seeing anything, Lonnie.
That's a 1.
Okay. Yeah, so you hold on, you're like, oh, this is gross, and you drop it.
And I cover it with a remark about, oh, I'm so clumsy. I pick it up. I think I know where he got this. I fold it up and clutch it like I'm holding on to some possession of his, some dear possession of his. Thank you so much for your help. Hopefully we will find you very quickly. And Cadmos and the others.
She nods. He's probably okay. I mean, he was always kind of looking off into space a little bit, but you know, he's destined for greatness. That's what the seer said, so I'm sure you'll find him. So as you're finishing up that conversation, Leon, you're fighting children.
Yes. Defeating children, thank you.
Yes. You're sparring with these 16-year-olds who've only been training for a few months.
Yeah.
And you're kicking their asses very handily because you've actually been in battle and they've never even been close to the battlefield.
Yeah. I'll probably show them some really cool scar I have.
Yeah, you show them a scar you have on your bicep, and a young person who says their name is Mirren just sort of reaches out and runs their finger along the scar and looks up at you wide-eyed. It's like, whoa, that's so cool.
I know.
I hope I get a scar like that.
You might someday, if you can live up to my greatness.
Yeah, I bet you must be the best in the whole unit. Wow.
Definitely. I can confirm your suspicions.
So are you looking for Callias then? Like, I saw you come in with his mom.
Yes. I hear he's gone missing, and she want to talk to his friends by himself or her by herself. So, why do you know anything about that?
He went to a temple, but he wouldn't go with us because we go to Ares every other night, and he stopped. He said the god of war wasn't going to help us anymore, and eventually we'd all worship his god, and it was really weird, man.
Was he talking about Poseidon?
No.
No.
I don't think so. And the kid looks just a little stoned for a moment. Oh, no, that's not right, no. But he didn't say a name. He just said that he was going to serve in a great way.
Huh. Well, that is strange. I'm not sure who else he would pledge his service to.
All I know, man, is he was outside camp.
So he's sneaking off to do this and not going to worship with you.
No, because I watched because they went off the first time, and I was like, well, yeah, the other soldiers, because they wanted him to take his shield or something, and they went that way. And he points out of the camp, inland, away from the sea.
For your service, I'll give you a little tip. You're holding your sword too close, too far. You want to grip, choke up on it a little bit. That's better.
Yeah, they were holding their sword kind of like this, and it's just a blunted training sword, but
you gotta choke up on that a bit.
Oh, cool tip, man. And then they turn away and call all their friends, look what I can do now. And everyone just ignores you as they go back to clamoring over who's going to fight the best in the next bout. So as you are having those conversations, let's go back to the bloody tent with Damon and Zoe. So Damon and Zoe, you've just seen this horrific sight, and I'd like to have insanity rolls from both of you.
Okay, I go up by 1 with a roll of 4.
Okay.
Oh! I don't know how she does it, but she maintains with a 4.
All right, so she's holding on. So Damon, you're looking at this, and you are just absolutely horrified. because you've seen blood and gore and guts on the battlefield, but that's noble combat. That's men and women and others fighting each other, and it's quick and it's brutal, but it's quick. And this is torture. Someone took their time with this person, and it is absolutely horrifying to you that anyone could do this. And you just sort of stare in horror at it for a moment. And Zoe, you're holding it together as you see this, but you do feel something tickling at the back of your head.
Oh, God.
A little bit. Back of your mind, you hear laughing. It's this deep, echoing laugh, unlike anything you've ever heard before. And then you hear a voice in your head saying,
Amusing what you puny, pathetic little humans will do to each other, isn't it?
She'll do like the thing where she'll like whip her shoulders around and look to make sure there wasn't someone actually standing behind her and her whispering that in the ear.
No one there.
And she will ask, Damon, did you hear that?
Folitimo, I say in Greek. There is no honor here. I'm completely transfixed by the form in front of me, so I haven't moved to acknowledge her physically with a look, because this is a horror that someone would be that if that is the quartermaster, that such an honorable person, of someone to be revered for a soldier like myself, would be tortured in such a way.
As you say that, as you say there's no honor here, the head turns slowly, agonizingly, and it looks at you.
Oh, God.
Or it would look at you if it had any eyes.
Oh, God.
It looks like this figure's eyes have been burned out. There are scorch marks around the empty sockets, and with deep, labored breath, you're not even sure how he's able to speak. He says, "Kill me. Kill me."
Zoe is going to kind of do like the finger snap beside Damon, seeing that he's transfixed, and she's just going to very carefully work her way into this room. As she's approaching this suspended poor man with burned out eyes and his lungs hanging out of his ribcage, she's going to speak to the voice that was in the back of her mind, and she's just going to say, "Name yourself," as she's like very curiously looking at this guy who's like suspended up.
Give me a roll.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. May I add my profession to it?
Yes, you may.
4 and a 4.
Excellent. So with a 4, you hear this laugh again, and it just kind of overwhelms your senses for a moment. It's almost like you're snapped into some kind of empty void from how deep and strange this laugh is, just for a split second. But you hear this voice say,
I don't think you're ready yet. Talk to me when you are.
Okay, so are there any visible weapons? A knife or anything that she can pick up?
You look around, you don't see anything on the floor weapon-wise. There's a pile of clothes off to the side that you assume are his. They've just been casually tossed onto the floor.
Okay.
You do have a sacrificial knife. As a priestess, you would have one.
Okay, but I can't, from a religious standpoint, I shouldn't be using it to put this dude out of his misery.
Well, it's up to you. I mean...
She's gonna look over her shoulders and snap, "Damon!"
I come to for a moment and stride forward. Yes.
This gentleman has made request.
Help me and stop him.
Oh, yeah. No, my sword comes out in an absolute flash. And I will go for the head immediately to rend it from its body.
As he says, "Stop him," you see the hand moving slightly, pointing off towards the other side of the tent. And then your sword comes up and slices cleanly through the head, and the head goes rolling off down the floor. And there's a pool of blood that comes spattering out of his severed neck. So, Zoe, you're going to give me an insanity roll for that, because you just watched a guy get his head chopped off. Damon, you're fine. You've killed people. But Damon, do give me a roll to see if you notice something.
That's a 2. Probably not.
Ooh, she hit a 4. She's maintaining.
Okay, so you can also give me a human roll, Zoe, to see if you notice something. Nope. Okay. So his hand was kind of outstretched towards the other side of the room. There's the pile of clothes where next to his severed head at this point, and there is a table behind you in the direction he was pointing. What would you like to do?
I suppose inspect the table before making our way out toward this way this thing pointed.
Okay, so he was pointing in the direction of the table on the other side of the room. So you move over there, Damon, and you see it's covered with scrolls and ink and wax. As quartermaster, that's not a surprise. But there is one scroll that it looks like it's freshly written on. It hasn't been sanded or anything to prevent the ink from smudging. And it looks like it stops mid-word.
So I suppose I should ask a bit of an out-of-character question. As a full-time soldier, how much of the written word would I be exposed to?
If only you could read anything other than your name.
Sure. Then I will gesture just a bit over my shoulder to Zoe and say, there are words here I cannot comprehend.
Her eyes are kind of transfixed on the head that just rolled and landed in a corner, but she'll eventually make her way over to Damon to see the scroll that he's holding.
As you look at the head before you move, would you like to pay the ferryman for him? Because when you die, a golden coin is put under your tongue to pay the ferryman so that your soul is carried across the river Styx. And until the ferryman is paid, your soul will wander the banks of the river Styx as a shade. Will you pay the ferryman for him?
Does she have the coins in her pocket? Probably all the time.
Everyone would carry their own coin in case they died away from home.
So his clothes are on the floor there. So it's almost like an instinctual thing. She's looking at the head. She's going to go talk to Damon about this scroll. She's like, oh, I need to pay the ferryman for him. And she looks at the pile of clothes. And then she looks at the head. And then she looks at the rest of him suspended from the ceiling. And she just immediately reconciles that, like, you know what? If I was teetering on my faith for the last year, this is probably about the straw that breaks the camel's back, and she chooses not to.
Oh, interesting. So I think I'd like an insanity roll for that.
That was a brave call. Yep. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you say that this breaks your faith completely.
Oh, listen, she loves these 4s today.
All right, so you look at his head, and with a great act of will, you tear yourself away and you go over to the table. Damon shows you this scroll, and it does look like whoever was writing it was interrupted. Would you like to read it?
Yes, please.
All right. So it's not addressed to anyone. You would know that scrolls were often carried directly by messenger to whoever they were supposed to be delivered to, so they wouldn't necessarily be addressed to anyone. But it says, I must ask you, once again, to do something about that meddling little priest of Nemesis. He keeps coming to my encampment, asking to preach his word to my men and women and other soldiers in the camp. Anyone could worship Nemesis. No one needs Nemesis. Nemesis hasn't been worshipped for years. I have better things to do than worry about some little priest coming in and speaking to my soldiers and taking them away from the worship of Ares, where they properly belong. I have sent some of the soldiers to have a word with this priest, Enyo, and they've returned and said everything is fine. And yet, he showed up again this morning. It is really And it trails off.
She'll have read that aloud for Damon, by the way. Who would have been the logical person that he would have been sending this to, even though it's not addressed?
You would assume probably the captain of the unit, or perhaps even a general, depending on how pissed off he was. But you can give me a roll. You can add your profession as well to see what you know about Enyo, the priest of Nemesis. Damon, you have no idea.
2 and a 1. Ooh, not my strong suit on this one.
No. I mean, you could always push the roll if you'd like to.
You know we're gonna do it, right?
Uh-huh.
You bet.
She
And
just
your
broke with her
hubris?
face. Listen, her hubris is out of control right now.
You're challenging the gods who you no longer believe in.
You're right. You're not real. Prove it to me. Highest of that was a profession 4.
Okay. Excellent. So with a 4, you remember Enyo, you think. You saw him a few times. He's this weedy little man with red hair and freckles, and his robes always looked too big for him. And he was priest of Nemesis. It was a very small temple in one of the shrines.
Okay.
And there were only 3 priests in that whole group for Nemesis that you can think of. And come to think of it, actually, you haven't seen him around. And Makarios was right. No one's worshipped Nemesis that you can think of in a while. It needs Nemesis when you have all this blood and vengeance on the field already. What do you do?
Awkward silence is both Bridget and Zoe processing everything that they put together here so quickly. She'll pick up the rest of the scrolls that are there, and as they're walking, or if they're going to idle hill, she'll start, quickly just power scanning through them. But she is very interested in... Is there a relationship between Nemesis and the Furies, or Megara? Is there anything that she can tie together with those 3?
Give me a profession roll.
Okay.
Damon, while that's happening, what are you doing?
I suppose I am probably following the hand. The hand pointed in a specific direction, and so that's the next portion of this. The priestess here can carry for the scrolls and the wax and whatnot.
Pair of 4s.
Damon, would you like to pay the ferryman?
Oh, without
This
question.
All right, so you can take a gold coin and put it under the tongue to pay the ferryman for him.
I suppose as I do so, too, I probably look back at Zoe and wonder why she didn't.
It's a very good question. That's part of her job, isn't it?
One would think. But it's been a difficult night so far for such a profession as hers.
So with 2 4s, Zoe, you know that Nemesis is kind of the big G god of vengeance.
Okay.
Right? So the Aranese or the Furies, they get called when it's one person or maybe like one small family that's done something heinous, like Agamemnon's father, for example, or the guy who killed his father and married his mother. You know those stories. But Nemesis is usually for big things. This is the kind of out of control vengeance to level a city.
Oh, okay.
Or to take down an entire family line. And so in some circles, the Furies are servants of Nemesis. You don't know that's not the official dogma, but some circles believe that the Furies serve Nemesis because they're both Chthonian, right? They're both from under the earth. And they were both born long before the Olympians themselves. And so they're associated in some more esoteric circles. And you think actually that cult may have been one of the groups that believed that as well.
Okay, so as Damon is doing the ritual that she should have been doing, she's flipping through skulls and she's saying all of this out loud as if she's talking to him, but she's really talking to herself. Like, it's really interesting because the Furies are typically only caught, and so she'll regurgitate what you just basically told me as he's doing her job.
I don't think so, actually. I think the way Damon would probably react to it after paying the ferryman is to go to her and say, because in Greek culture, priestess are revered, like you are my connection to the gods. And so I think given all the time he's spent here in these fields of blood fighting for Troy, he's learned that either the gods protect you or you don't, and you'd better be on the right side. And so he's probably in a much more supportive role rather than trying to find fault with her, because he's realized that over time everyone has faults. And he has some of his own deep faults that have happened in his past. And so I think maybe he's trying to be a little bit more understanding with her in hopes that the gods will be understanding with his crimes as he sees it.
As you go up to Zoe, both of you hear crying. Not the same kind of hiccuping, sobbing that you heard from Iola. This sounds like a small child wailing. So let's switch back over to Leon and Eulalia here. What are you doing? You've finished your conversations with these young soldiers in training, gathered some information. What would you like to do?
Eulalia, I hear your son has started worshiping a new god. I'm assuming you found out the same?
My son evidently went to this temple at the behest of another soldier, an actual soldier, who asked him to carry his shield to the temple. So I'm afraid he might have gotten mixed up in all of this.
It sounded to me like he may have been converted. It sounded like he went more than once. Look, the kid I was talking to did not seem like the most reliable source of information, but I do trust what he said, and he pointed me in that direction.
I fear it may be possible.
Yeah.
Oh, Muse, just to be curious,
Yes.
about what point did he go to the temple in relation to what I asked him?
What you asked him to do was on the night he disappeared.
Okay, so he had already been going to the temple.
Yeah, so he'd been going to the temple for at least 3 days.
Okay. So I comfort myself a small bit in that wasn't necessarily the reason for everything happening. But I look at Leon and say perhaps it's best we go rejoin the others and see if they found out anything about this temple.
Yes, we should combine our information, but I feel we may be headed to that temple soon.
Yes.
So are you going off in the direction that the kid pointed you in, or are you going back towards the quartermaster's tent?
I believe we're gonna regroup at the quartermaster's tent.
Okay.
Yeah. While we go, I would like to sort through my personal experience, and
Okay.
I know that Irene said that my son had come back and seemed off for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Could that have been substance related?
It could be. It's hard for you to tell without having seen it, but you can give me a roll as you think back to what your son was like for those couple days.
Yeah. And I can use my profession die?
Yes, you can add your profession.
Well, no, I this is so unlike my son. I cannot possibly believe that he did this.
Would you in your hubris like to push the roll?
But yes, actually I would.
Excellent.
Oh, look at that. It's a 6 on the human.
All right, so you think back as the two of you are walking back towards the quieter portion of the camp to meet up with your colleagues. You're thinking back, Eulalia, to analyzing your son's behavior and trying to see if it matches up with any of the psychotropics that you've used or that you have knowledge of. And you remember something. Why are you remembering this now? What? And then you shake your head. Is that you remember you were asleep and you were dreaming, and it was the night he disappeared, and you had told him before you went to sleep to go and find out what was happening, that you'd been told in a vision when you were under some drug the day before that he could stop this. And he'd accepted very quickly. He was always a good boy. But then, now you're remembering, was it a dream, or did he actually come to you out of the shadows? Remember him was looking down at you. He took your hand. You could see his clear blue eyes and his curly blonde hair, that sort of angelic face. And he said, I know how to stop it, Mother. I can do what you ask. I know what the god wants. It's for the innocent.
Oh,
So give me that insanity roll.
yeah. Nope, that's a 5. Yeah, so I'm going to 4.
So you realize in that moment that even if what you asked him to do didn't start this, what you asked him to do made him decide to do something. And with a sinking feeling, you're not sure what that is, but you suddenly feel panic. So let's cut back over to the other two. At this point, your companions have been away for a little bit. So timeline-wise, the two of you, Leon and Eulalia, will be heading back into this part of the camp, but you're not there yet. Damon and Zoe, you have just heard what sounds like a child crying.
Can I discern where it might be coming from?
It's definitely outside, and it seems to be outside of camp.
Then I will look at Zoe and say, there is nothing more for us here. We should return to the others and perhaps put an end to this.
She pauses for a moment, and her eyelashes flicker. She looks to you, and she looks at the door, and she looks at you, and she says, "Do you not hear the child?"
Yes, there are childs that whimper all the time.
There's a hard pause, and she's just going to follow after him.
No, when she pauses and comes closer, I'll stop and say, you care for the crying of the child, but not the soul leaving for the ferryman.
Can I smack him?
Yeah? How do you react to that, Damon? Priestess just slapped you.
I take it, that's fine.
She wants to say something smart and condescending, but really he just read her. So her eyes are probably going to gloss over, and she's just going to walk by him.
I will turn as she walks by and say, we are not done here.
She will turn on her heel.
This man laid flayed, and you walked past him, giving him no succor, no release for his soul. And as we leave now to hopefully end this, now you ask me to search after a babe? What are the differences? Souls are souls, are they not?
She's choking on her voice. She says, you, and the audacity for you to speak to me in such a manner. Have you not had doubts? All this time, all these years, everything that we've gone through, you've never had doubts. You've never once questioned why we were here. You've never once thought to yourself, have the gods abandoned us? Are they actually real? Never once. Not once. Have you suffered doubt?
Yes, I have suffered doubt. On the beaches after a battle, I have suffered great doubt. I bow my head. You are right. Let us find this child.
She sniffs, she blinks, tears are running down the side of her face, but she refuses to outright cry, and she'll flip her hair around again and head out into the night.
All right, so you head out into the night. You can hear the crying. It's definitely a child crying in great distress, and it's enough for you, Damon, that the tracks that you were following earlier are leading in that direction anyway, perhaps, and you can start following those tracks as well as you head towards the crying. And you can see as you leave the camp, there's a copse of very scraggly looking trees off in the distance. But closer to you, seated on a small pile of sand, there's what looks like a young child, maybe 12 years old, 13. They're certainly wearing a child's short tunic, and they've clasped their hands around their knees. Their head is buried in their hands, and they're sobbing as if their heart is breaking. And there's a shovel on the ground next to them. And as you see this, Leon and Eulalia, you can see your companions up ahead, just outside the camp.
I run towards them. Full tilt. I've been moving faster all this time as what my thoughts have led me to this, and so I am just practically running at full tilt at this moment.
Ugh, I'll keep up with her.
Leon and Eulalia, you catch up to Damon and Zoe, who can hear both of you coming up behind them. And the two of you also see this small crying child up on the sandy hill ahead of you. What do you do?
I would I guess approach and see what's going on. If we can see them approaching the child or close to the child as well, they may already know what's happening.
Yeah, I will just head up to the others.
So you reach the child, and it's like they almost don't even notice that you're there, and their little shoulders are shaking with grief as they're sobbing over whatever it is, and they seem too lost in their own sadness to notice that anyone's there.
Child, quiet yourself. Are you lost? Are you looking for your parents?
This small child with golden hair looks up at you at that, tears streaming down their face, red-eyed, and Eulalia, you feel a bit of a pang because this reminds you of Callias when he was younger, and he'd skin his knee or break a treasured toy, and he'd come crying to you like this, and it hurts a little bit. The child just looks up and sniffles, and I found them. I found them.
Oh, well, where are they?
Run over and pick up the child.
And they point with one trembling hand towards the trees. Just whimpering at you.
I'll head off to it. I'll go investigate whatever this kid is pointing at.
Okay. The rest of you?
I would imagine with this, at least the source of the whimpering found, I'm going to probably head off along with Leon.
Eulalia, Zoe?
I'm hanging back with the child.
Okay.
She's also kind of looking at the child. She'll ask them, who did you find?
All of them. And as they say that, Damon and Leon, you enter into this copse of trees. They're kind of scraggly beech trees, the kind that's too wet and too thin to really be of use as firewood or weapons of war, siege engines, anything like that, which is why they're still standing. And you make your way into this little copse of trees, and it's quiet in here as well. Very quiet. You don't even hear the gulls or the other birds that sometimes make nests in trees like this. And you can feel a palpable sense of dread settling over you as you step into this copse. And up ahead of you, you see what looks like the beginning of a hole being dug. And next to it, you see the body of a pony. And it's just lying there. Flies are buzzing around it slowly. And Damon, you know this has probably happened here, is bodies of animals are supposed to be burned because there's no room for burying things anymore, but sometimes children can't bear to let go of their pets that way. And so you would assume that the child, whoever they are, brought their beloved pony in to bury it out of sight where no one would notice. There's it looks like a sled that they might have drawn the pony on. As you get closer to the hole, you realize that when the child started digging, they uncovered something else, because it looks like the sand has fallen into a long trench, and it stretches and stretches. And when you look down in the trench and you see bodies stacked on top of each other. There are at least 4 or 5 bodies deep in different stages of decomposition. They're all naked. They have all been mutilated in some way. Some have their tongues split. Others are missing fingers or toes. Some are eyeless or noseless. All are bruised and battered. And perhaps most horrifically of all of the bodies on this top layer have been slit open. Their bellies have been opened to reveal their entrails, and the smell, the stench of their entrails just hits you like a wall as you approach this trench, and it drives you to your knees. The smell of the battlefield or of a temple, but here on the beach, far from the gods, far from the enemy, as you look down into this pit of mutilated corpses. Insanity rolls for both of you, please.
I was already typing it while you were talking.
Ooh, I am at 5.
I'm at 2.
And that means it's time to destroy evidence.
Okay. Well, as you look down into this, Damon, you vomit in horror at what you see, just the sheer horror of all of this, and you can't help but make the connection here between the chicken earlier with its entrails being red for an omen and what has been done to this top layer of bodies here. And it's so horrific that you try to block it out of your mind. And as that happens, you hear something in the back of your head.
I know what you did.
Okay, I think Damon's probably going to, other than the bodies and the horse and this long kind of sweeping charnel mess that's here, there are no fires near here, right? There are no, other than my torch.
No, just your torch. All the fires are back in the campsite.
Does it look like this leads anywhere beyond this pit in the sand as it goes down? Does it lead anywhere deeper beyond, or is it just this?
It just looks like a mass grave. And as you're having that thought, Leon, as you look down in at these bodies, it also overwhelms you. Because you've been in 2 battles already, but you've never seen anything like this. This is horrific. And you don't know what curse caused people to do something like this to each other.
Yes, it is horrible, but steel yourself, man, as Damon pukes next to me. I don't know what horrific atrocity committed this, but we have to figure out for the good of the camp.
I nod in agreement. The quartermaster is dead. He was flayed and hung from his lungs. I was forced to chop him down, and we saw to the passage of the ferryman to make sure that he would be safe.
I'm sure that whoever did this did not grant the same for these victims.
No.
And you, Damon, you hear,
And no one will do the same for you either. When they find out. Is that what you want?
You can probably take a look around just to make sure. Is there nothing here that moves? I get frustrated and head back towards the other 2.
Eulalia and Zoe, you're trying to talk to the child, right?
No, I actually, when the child says all of them, I drop the child and run headlong towards where the soldiers went.
Okay, so you run into this copse of trees and you see the same thing, this pit of bodies, the stench, the entrails, the blood. Insanity roll first.
Okay. I am fine for the moment, relatively speaking, because I am laser focused on the fact that one of those bodies might be my son. And so I run down there immediately into the pile of bodies and start turning them over, looking for...
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm stopping her from getting to these bodies. I know what is coming, and I know what Lee and I have been through on the field of battle. That is nothing for her to see.
Okay.
I
It's
will
not up
resist
close.
that.
We're going to have a contested roll then. So both of you roll a d6.
Okay. 4.
3. Damn it.
Okay, so Damon
Can I push
stops.
that?
Yeah, you can push it.
Sure.
Add your insight or your insanity there.
Yeah, there's a 6.
Yes. Okay. Damon, you go to grab Eulalia to stop her out of compassion, but she tears past you, wild-eyed, and she dives into the pit and starts frantically digging among the bodies, pushing them, throwing them out of the way. You know, the strength that parents get sometimes to rescue a child from under a trapped vehicle, that's what she's experiencing right now. She's just throwing these bodies out of the way.
And I am calling Kallios's name.
And she is screaming for Kallios as she's looking for him.
I'll probably call after her. No, you fool. Even if you find him, you do not want him.
And you don't find him, Eulalia. His body is not here. You do find one of the top bodies in this pit is Leandros. You recognize the cut on his face and his hair and the birthmark on his shoulder. He's one of this top layer of bodies here, but you do not find Callias. And as you have that realization, you just sort of sink to your knees amidst these corpses, looking up at the sky in relief. And something is looking at you.
Oh.
You see these small, beady little red eyes peering out at you through the trees. You see a wolf's snout extending out, these fangs and slavering jaws. You see bat's wings extending out. You hear the hiss of serpents writhing around its head. And it looks at you, and it cocks its head and it says,
Too late now. Too late. Not gonna find him now.
I'd like that insanity roll now, please.
Yeah, sure. Hey, that's a 6.
Oh, so mania begins to take hold of you, Eulalia, as you're looking at this creature, whatever it is, and it's looking at you and laughing, and you're up to your shoulders in corpses. And as this thing looks at you and laughs, you see its hand, if you can call it a hand, it's more like a wizened claw, lashes out, and there's this bronze whip in one hand, and the whip lashes out and curls around your throat. And it burns. So give me that mania roll, please.
That's another 6. I'm out.
Well, the good thing is mania doesn't stack, so you only have to roll again once. But what are you up to now?
6.
The rest of you see Eulalia on her knees in this pit, and then you see her wild-eyed staring up at something in the trees, and her eyes go wild, and then her hands come up and clutch at her throat. And it's like she's pulling at something, and she starts screaming and screaming and screaming. And then something jerks her forward out of the pit. And she's being dragged along through the trees, out of the trees by some invisible force, and all of you can hear this cackling laughter on the air as Eulalia's corpse is dragged through the sand at impossible speeds and off into the distance. So I would like an insanity roll from the surviving people.
Oh yeah, that's a 6, and I'm at 6 now.
Oh my god.
A 5, which puts me at 3.
Zoe is still with that kid. Do I get a pass on this particular
that's right.
one?
Zoe's not there. Yeah,
Thank
so
God.
you're not there. You don't see this. Okay, so Damon, you watch this happen, and you feel helpless.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do something. You have to save her. You have to do something because this is your redemption. It's your only chance. You don't want to be wandering the Styx forever, or worse, be condemned to hell.
Oh yeah.
You want to have a chance at the Elysian Fields. You have to do something here, and you take off running after her corpse that's being dragged along further and further away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leon,
Yes.
you've just seen all of that, and Damon let out a scream, draw his sword, and go running after Eulalia's body that's being dragged away by something you can't see. What do you do?
I would probably shout out to Zoe to leave the child. Eulalia's been taken. We must pursue it, and I'll follow after Damon.
Okay. Zoe, are you going?
So, there have been random screams and shouts and really agonizing things coming from the forest. And all while this is happening, she's sitting down next to this kid like, I want to tell you a story about a young priestess of Poseidon. And like a scream will go in the background and she'll stop And then one day she came to the realization, and then like branches are breaking, there's more horrific screaming, blood curling, ripping sounds. She's like, and that's when she lost her faith. So everything is nothing and nothing is everything. Do you understand, little boy?
The child looks up at you in terror and starts crying and runs away from you. I would like an insanity roll from Zoe at this moment because of all the screaming and the tearing and the yelling.
I so appreciate
and the scaring
that.
small children.
Oh, 4s are just the number of the day for her.
Oh, but that's fine. That's totally fine.
She maintains.
So you hear in your head,
They weren't ready. Now they never will be. What about you? Do you want to see me? Do you want to see me, Zoe? What do you have to lose?
Yes, if you're brave enough.
Excellent.
and you find yourself falling. And you fall and fall into darkness. And then you hear screaming in the background, this horrific screaming that crescendos over you. It's swallowing you whole. And then you land. It doesn't hurt, but you're somewhere cold and wet and dark. You can hear a river somewhere lapping against the shore. And there's water in front of you. It's cold. You can feel how cold it is without even touching it. And as you stand there, wondering, screaming begins to dissolve. You see a ferryman off in the distance, rowing. There's a woman's figure standing on the bank. You can't make out who it is. And in the boat, there's what looks like a man, you think. But they're so far away, it's hard to tell. But it tells you where you are. You're at the River Styx. And as you have that realization, the water in front of you stirs, and you see something rising out of the water. This rising figure going up and up and up. And it rises 15, 20, 25, 30 feet. And still it rises. And when it finally stops, the water still is up to its hips. And it looks down at you. There is this tall, onyx black figure. No gender, as far as you can tell, but with long dark hair reaching down into the water, wearing a spiked crown. They're holding a sword in one hand and a set of scales in the other. And when they speak, you know that you are in the presence of a god. And Nemesis looks down at you, Zoe, and says,
What would you have of me, little human?
She'll pause for a moment, look at them, and she'll say, I want to be remembered. After years of service, after years of sacrifice, after a year of doubt, I want them to remember me.
Nemesis crouches down a little bit so that their face is next to you, and their head is so massive that when they bend down, you can only see their eyes. And they look at you. One finger touches your forehead, and you feel yourself somewhere else. You're younger. You're on the bridge of a ship. There are hundreds of ships around you as you look around. There's sea, air, and salt, but no breeze. And sickening feeling as you remember this day that you have tried to forget for 10 years. As you look around at all the other priests and servants and soldiers, you hear murmurings in the stillness. You look down to Agamemnon's flagship, and you see a priest of Artemis, walking out onto the ship. And then you see the king himself walking out, and everyone around you begins to murmur, maybe this is the day when the wind will come. And then you see that on the king's arm is his 13-year-old daughter, Iphigenia. She's She's wearing a long white dress. Her hair is unbound and flowing down her back in the way of children. She seems quiet and happy and dazed. He leads her up to the prow of the ship and the priest. And there's an altar there, and you feel the pang in your chest the way you did that day 10 years ago. As you know what's coming, the people around you begin to murmur in confusion as the king lifts his daughter and lays her on the altar. The priest lifts a knife. Someone begins to scream. No, this can't be happening. But as it did 10 years ago, the knife comes down across her throat. The blood begins to spill. Fire arises from her body. Everyone begins to call out as if in anger and fear and rage. And then the winds come. Sails fill, and everyone is distracted for a moment at this sign of the gods' favor. And you remember this is the day you began to lose that faith. Because who could serve gods? Who would ask for your children? And who would only let you be remembered for your deeds if you sacrificed your own kin to them? And you snap back into this underground place. And Nemesis looks at you and says,
Do you want to be remembered by them? For all that?
And just like her intro scene, eyes fill up with tears, she bites her bottom lip, and all she can do is shake her head no.
Will you serve me, child? I will make you immortal.
She drops to both knees.
Excellent.
and this laughter fills the air, and you snap back to just outside the copse of trees, and Leon is calling for you.
Head that way.
Zoe, you know where to go. You know where the temple is now. You could take Leon there. You could show him the truth.
Zoe, come on. We have to go follow Damon.
Where is Damon gone?
Eulalia was, I don't know, taken somewhere. He went to chase her. We have to go. Let's go follow him.
A moment, please.
And Zoe, the moment Leon is pointing is the direction you know where the temple is.
Oh, it's such a win. I don't even have to fake a bone roll. She's like, we must make chase.
Yes, let's go.
You follow off after Damon has been running and running and running. And we'll see what happens to him in a moment. So as you follow off in that direction, you can no longer see him or the body of Eulalia. Eulalia, you find yourself standing on the bank of a cold, dark river. You don't know who you are. You don't know where you are. But it hurts. Whatever it is, it hurts. And Zoe and Leon, you followed the tracks of Damon down along the beach. You can see the plague carts rolling along. You can hear the creaking of the wood. The horses are whickering. The oxen are lowing as they pull and pull. A low storm appears to be rolling over the wine-dark seas as you move down the sand. You can see the smoke of the plague fires rising in the distance, and even the spices and herbs that the priests throw into the flames can't completely mask the scent of death. But after a few minutes, the tracks turn inwards, and you move away from the sea. And you move through the sand. It's beginning to become rocky. And then, as you crest a small sandy hill, it becomes silent. This is not the same silence as back in the camp. This is an absence of anything. You can see there's a small stone building that looks like a shrine with circles of tents around it. But you can't hear anything. You can't feel even the sand beneath your feet. You can't feel those nipping feelings of the little sand fleas that you felt for 10 years at your ankles and your knees. The mosquitoes have stopped buzzing in your ears. You can't even hear the carts or the lapping of the sea. can't smell the plague fires behind you. It is an absence of sound and smell and everything. And as you move down into this sort of campsite, you come across Damon. 2 spears have been thrust through his chest, crosswise, and he is hanging there, suspended, and then his head comes up, and he looks at you.
He'll probably cast his eyes to Leon first and say, "You'll fail just like me." And then turn to the priestess and say, "Finally, your faith is revealed."
So, Leon, insanity roll, please. And you too, Zoe.
It was a 5 for me, so I'm up to 4.
Okay. Alright, Zoe's still good there. And Damon's dead body continues to hang there on these spears, arms outstretched. And as you walk past him and his head turns to look at you, you can see his heart has been pulled out of his chest, leaving just a gaping cavity, bleeding over his tunic. He continues to whisper words of doom into the empty air. You can make your way through the camp. There's the shrine ahead of you. Zoe, this is the Temple of Nemesis. You know it. What do you do?
I shall look over to Leon and say, everything that we have suffered, everything that we've lost, everything that we've uncovered has led us to this point.
Yes, and I believe we must destroy it.
She'll step out a couple steps in front of her and fling that long gray hair over her shoulder. She's like, "Are you sure?"
Clearly there is nothing here worthwhile to worship, only pain and suffering. Do you not see our companion hanging heartless?
Well, he's not entirely absent at heart. To be honest with you, it's the bravest I've seen him in years. And she's continuing to walk backwards towards the temple.
And all of the bodies in the pit back there, you did not see them. And Eulalia and her son, are all of their lives worthwhile? How many more will we have to feed to stop the nightmares and the plague?
How many lives has Agamemnon devoured in the last 10 years? Death is relative. Pain and suffering is relative. We've come this far. Surely you're not the coward that your colleagues whisper that you are. We must see this through.
I am no coward. They say these words of me?
Indeed, they have. In confidence in the temple, but I feel like you need to know now. This, Leon, is your moment of truth. We've come so far.
Yes, this is my moment of glory. I am stronger than Damon. I am stronger than that which they speak of me. You're right. Yes, this is my time of honor, my time of glory.
She will do a huge priestly bow and then kind of like present the temple to you in this big grand waving gesture.
And Leon, you don't like what she said about Agamemnon and how many souls he's taken. That rankles at you. You've got to do something here. You've got to prove yourself, don't you?
I know. I'm so torn here. Yeah, she speaks ill of Agamemnon, who I idolize, and who may possibly even be my father. I want to go under the guise of, I go along with her and say, like, you're right, this is my time of glory, but the minute her eyes aren't on me, attack. Because clearly she is insane and evil and is against Agamemnon, is probably the one spreading these rumors, these horrible, horrible untruths about Leon.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, you can try to attack Zoe. Zoe, are you going to do anything about it?
No, she has faith again. She's fine. She's not gonna dodge it. She's not gonna fight back.
Okay. So, make a roll. Okay. Zoe, you feel the point of Leon's spear go straight through you. And you look at him and you laugh. Insanity roll for Leon, please. And Zoe, in your head you hear,
I keep my word.
I'm good. I rolled a 4 and I'm at 4. So 4's for days.
So
This game.
I think it would be more interesting if Leon failed this roll.
Okay. You can roll against him. Oh.
The gods have divined it.
Okay, so it didn't work.
My strength.
The fates have determined that you will hold on for a little bit longer. And so you can you can hear Zoe laughing at you, and Zoe, you have this strange feeling, like you have this vision almost of this elderly woman with one eye trying to cut a golden string, and it just won't cut. And Nemesis has kept their word. Leon, you hear chanting from inside the shrine. What do you do?
So I just have her on my spear.
Yep. You have impaled her. She doesn't seem to mind all that much, though.
Yeah, that's strange. I mean, my first thought is to, like, lift her with my spear and toss her aside, and then rush in to strike down the rest of these foes of Agamemnon.
You rush into the shrine, throwing open the doors, and it is ablaze with this strange green light. It hurts your eyes and head as the smoke of incense fills your nostrils, and the sound of chanting is overwhelming to you. There are people, men, women, and others in these long red robes. That's definitely Die, right? Definitely? Yeah, definitely Die. As they are bowing and chanting in front of these candles that are ringing the room, and bowing and chanting, and up ahead in the center of the room is an altar on a dais, and you see this man, this weedy, red-headed man, standing with his high conical-shaped hat and his long robes, holding a dagger in one hand. And you follow the point of the dagger down to the altar, and you see there is a young man tied to the altar, wrist to corner, ankle to corner, completely naked. His hair is golden and curly, and he's arching his back up, so that his chest is rising towards the dagger as if he is trying to meet it in the air, and he has this beatific expression on his face as you recognize Callias, the son of Eulalia, as his body reaches up towards the dagger as the priest Enyo chants and begins to plunge it down.
Can I, run forward and try to, smash whatever is binding him?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's bound to this table.
He's tied to the altar, so you can run forward through these cultists. Zoe, are you going to try and stop this?
Do I still have your spear through me?
Yeah. I was in just a absolute fury, and I tossed you aside with my spear. I was going to run in and grab any other weapons I may have or can find.
Speaking of fury, you start to hear cackling.
Uh-oh.
As you are running towards the altar, you see Enyo's body begins to split down the middle.
Ugh.
And he's still chanting even as he splits through the mouth, and this big black obsidian shape begins to emerge out of this splitting, still chanting body. And you hear this cackling as these three squat-bodied little figures with snakes for hair and wings of bats that are dripping serpents and the snouts of wolves start fluttering up and up over the shoulders of whatever this thing is. And you feel the eyes of all three furies on you as you rush for the altar. First, give me an insanity roll for that.
Yeah.
As you are rushing for the altar.
That's a 2 under 4,
Okay,
so I'm
you're okay.
good.
You're focused on your mission. So
to free this boy.
So give me a roll as you rush up. How are you untying him? You left your spear outside.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that they would maybe have some weapons in here that I could grab and, cut the ropes. But if they don't, I may just try to untie the ropes or see if I can help him pull them off his hands.
Okay, so you go up and you start trying to furiously untie them. There's no weapons in here. If you remember, all the tents, the empty tents, still had their weapons in them.
Oh, that's right.
And Zoe, what are you doing?
The handles on these doors, are they like just knockers, or are they the big ones where the handles are bolted onto the doors? What do the handles of the doors look like here?
You can just shove it open. This is a small shrine. It's not like a huge temple.
I think she would just scramble up to her knees, walk up to the shrine, go inside the doors, and then just close them and just stand behind them and just watch.
The doors slam shut behind you, Leon, and you maybe turn your head a little bit and you see Zoe standing there, a gaping hole in her chest, and she's just smiling beatifically at you as you hear this cackling and the chanting and the smoke, and it's overwhelming. But you begin to untie Callias.
Yes.
And so you start untying him as the knife begins to come down, and I'd like you to give me a roll.
Okay. Oh,
all right.
1.
So you untie one of his wrists, but I rolled a 5, and his hand backhands you across the face.
Oh, wow.
As he lifts his body up towards the knife, and you hear him say, "It's the blood of the innocent. I can end this." And he throws his head back and he arches towards the knife, and the knife slits across his throat, and he falls back with this beautiful smile on his face, and his head falls to the side as he looks at you and says, "It was my fate." As the blood spurts across the altar, there's a loud cracking sound as Enyo's body just completely shatters. And the huge, massive, indescribable form of Nemesis emerges, rising to the cries of adoration and glee and glory from all of their worshippers. And the Furies begin to cackle, and Nemesis looks down at you, Leon, and says,
"One last chance, little mortal. You serve me?"
No. I serve no one but Agamemnon.
And there's this boom of laughter that lays the walls of the building flat. It pulverizes the stone and the wood of this temple. And Nemesis says,
"Sounds like it's dinner time, little friend."
And you hear a screeching and a cackling as all 3 of the Furies launch themselves at you and begin to shred your face. And we'll end with this coda. Damon, you never leave this place. You are, as Nemesis warned you would be, forbidden from ever even entering the underworld. And you remain heartless, suspended on these spears. Your flesh wastes away, eroded by the sand and the wind and the salt. Your bones still hang there as you watch time pass. You can see Nemesis with Zoe at their side, striding off, trampling the camp of the Greeks with one massive foot, and the walls of Troy with the other, as they and their legion make their way to Olympus to take their place as the head of the gods. And you stay there forever, your bones bleaching in the wind, muttering doom to all who pass you. Small children come and lay coins at your feet. Parents come and sacrifice in hopes of a better fate for their younglings. But all you can tell them is gloom and despair. And that's where we'll end it.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful and bloodied end. I think it was fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. It was great, Rina.
And on that note, we will say good night. We won't say it might be pleasant after listening to that, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. And thanks to all the cast who helped make the episode possible, and for Rina for being an amazing storyteller. So we look forward to attending you again, and thank you for your listening ears.